Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well today. Got another story for you, and I'll tell you right now, this one hit me hard. Make sure you stick around until the end because the way this one wraps up is something else. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and hit that button. It really helps the channel. Right, before we get into today's story, I want to share a comment that came in on one of our recent videos. Listen to this one. I was with my partner for 5 years. We lived together in a flat in Dunedin, shared everything, had a cat, talked about buying a house one day. One afternoon I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. Walked through the front door and heard her in the bedroom on the phone with someone. Laughing, using pet names, saying things she hadn't said to me in months. I stood in the hallway for about 3 minutes just listening. When I walked in, she panicked, ended the call, and immediately said it was her cousin. At 9 o'clock at night. Calling her cousin darling and saying she couldn't wait to see him on Saturday. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. I went to the wardrobe, packed a bag, loaded the cat into the carrier, and drove to my mate's place in Queenstown. That was 12 years ago. She rang me every single day for 3 months. Sent letters. Showed up at my workplace twice. Even got her mother to ring me, begging. I never responded once. Not a single time. She ended up marrying that so-called cousin. They lasted 14 months before he cheated on her with someone from his office. I've been with my wife now for 10 years. 2 beautiful kids, and we just bought our first home in Wanaka with a view of the lake. Best decision I ever made was walking out that door with the cat under my arm. Now I love this comment. I genuinely love it. 12 years ago, this bloke stood in his own hallway, heard everything he needed to hear, and made a decision that changed the entire direction of his life. No confrontation, no screaming match, no "how could you do this to me?" Just gone. Bag packed, cat in the carrier, out the door. And look at the results. She married the phone bloke. It lasted barely over a year because surprise surprise, a man who helps a woman cheat on her partner isn't exactly the loyal type himself. Meanwhile, our man here has been happily married for a decade, got 2 kids, and is living in Wanaka with a lake view. That's not luck. That's what happens when you choose yourself instead of chasing someone who's already chosen someone else. This is what we talk about all the time on this channel. When someone shows you who they really are, you don't ask them to explain it. You don't give them a chance to dress it up in excuses. You believe it. You accept it. And then you go build something better with someone who deserves you. If any of you have stories like this, please share them in the comments. I read every single one and I'll feature the best ones in upcoming videos. Right, now let's get into today's story. She said, "It's not my fault that other men find me attractive. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't need the attention." That's what she said to me. After I caught her giving her phone number to some random bloke at a barbecue, right in front of our friends, right in front of people who knew we'd been together for over 2 years. I looked at her and said, "You know what, Tessa? You're absolutely right. I am boring." The next morning, her name was off the car insurance, off my phone plan, off my bank account, and off every single bill I'd been quietly paying on her behalf. Her key card to the apartment building stopped working by lunchtime. She rang me 47 times that day. I didn't pick up once. My name's Stuart. I'm 33, and my now ex-girlfriend Tessa was 28 when all this happened. We'd been together just over 2.5 years. And she'd moved into my apartment in Ponsonby about 14 months before that barbecue. It was my place. My lease, my name, my furniture, my everything. When she moved in, we'd talked about her contributing to the rent, but she said she was between proper jobs and just needed a few months to get sorted. A few months turned into 14, and somehow I'd ended up covering nearly everything. Let me paint the full picture so you understand just how boring I'd become. I was paying the rent on the apartment. $1,400 a week for a 2-bedroom in Ponsonby. I was covering the power, the internet, the water rates. I was paying for her Spark mobile plan because she said $70 a month was too much when she wasn't earning much. I was making her car payments, $430 a month on a Mazda hatchback she'd leased before we met but could never quite afford. I was paying the car insurance, the fuel most of the time, the gym membership at City Fitness which was $120 a fortnight for the couple's plan. I was covering Netflix, Spotify, the grocery delivery account, even topping up her eftpos card when she ran low so she wouldn't be embarrassed at the shops. Meanwhile, Tessa worked part-time at a boutique in Newmarket. Maybe 20 hours a week on a good week. She earned enough to cover her personal shopping and nights out with her friends, but anything resembling an actual adult expense landed on my shoulders. I'm a structural engineer. Good salary, stable career, I'd worked hard for it. And I didn't mind helping someone I loved. That's what you do. But somewhere along the way, helping turned into carrying, and carrying turned into enabling, and enabling turned into being taken completely for granted. That barbecue was a Saturday afternoon in late January. My mate Craig was hosting at his place over in Devonport. Lovely spot, backs onto a reserve with a view of Rangitoto in the distance. Classic Auckland summer dew. Sausages and steaks on the barbecue, a chili bin packed with spades and some fancy craft beers Craig's wife had picked up, salads on the outdoor table, a few kids running through the sprinkler. Good people, good vibes, everyone relaxed. Tessa came with me, of course. She was wearing this new outfit, some designer thing she'd bought earlier that week. $320. I know the exact amount because I saw the receipt sitting on the kitchen bench next to my car keys. Bought with the eftpos card I kept topped up. She looked good. She always looked good. I'll give her that. About an hour into the barbecue, I was standing near the grill talking to Craig and another mate, Felix, about the Warriors' chances this season. Standard bloke conversation. That's when I glanced across the backyard and noticed Tessa over by the back fence, talking to some bloke I didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, not someone from Craig's usual circle. He looked like he might have been there with someone else, or maybe he was a neighbor who'd wandered over. I didn't think much of it at first. Tessa was sociable, she talked to everyone. But then I saw her reach into her handbag and pull out her phone. She typed something, tilted the screen towards him, and he pulled out his own phone and typed something back. They both looked at their screens for a moment, and then Tessa laughed, reached out, and touched his arm. The kind of touch that isn't accidental. The kind of touch that says something. Craig had noticed me watching. He didn't say anything, just raised his eyebrows slightly and took a sip of his beer. I put my plate down, walked across the lawn, nice and casual, and came up beside Tessa. The bloke saw me approaching and sort of stepped back, not quite guilty, but definitely aware. Who was that? I asked once the bloke had drifted away towards the house. Tessa barely turned to face me. Oh, just some guy. Ethan or something, I think. He asked for my number, so I gave it to him. I paused. You gave your phone number to a random bloke. At our mate's barbecue. Well, I'm standing right over there. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. Like it was nothing. Oh, come on, Stuart, don't be dramatic. It's not my fault that other men find me attractive. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't need the attention. She said it loud enough that at least 4 people heard. Craig's wife turned away. Felix suddenly found something fascinating about his beer label. Rachel, Tessa's closest friend, was standing maybe 3 meters away holding a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, and she looked at the ground like she wanted it to swallow her. I stood there for about 5 seconds. 5 seconds of absolute clarity. You know what, Tessa? I said. You're absolutely right. I am boring. She smirked. That satisfied, smug little smirk she did when she thought she'd won something. Well, at least you can finally admit it. I'll sort that out, I said. Then I picked up my keys from the outdoor table, walked through the side gate, got in my car, and drove home. She called twice before I hit the harbor bridge. I let both calls ring out. Then I turned my phone to silent. Update 1. Sunday morning. I barely slept that night. But when I woke up on Sunday morning, something had shifted. It was like someone had wiped fog off a windscreen. I could see the road ahead clearly for the first time in years. She wanted me to be less boring? Right then. I was about to become the most interesting person in her life. Just not in any way she'd enjoy. First thing, the apartment. My name on the lease. Only my name. Tessa had been living with me for 14 months but had never been added to the tenancy agreement. She kept saying she'd sort the paperwork but never did. Now, I'm not stupid. I knew that under New Zealand tenancy law, she'd established occupancy rights after that long. I couldn't just chuck her things out a window and change the locks. That would put me on the wrong side of the law, and I wasn't about to hand her a legal weapon. So I rang a mate of mine, Alistair, who's a property lawyer over in Takapuna. Rang him early Sunday morning, apologized for the weekend call, and laid out the situation. He confirmed what I suspected. Minimum 21 days written notice, delivered properly, documented. He offered to draft something up for me, but I told him I'd write it myself and have him check it over. He said that was fine and to keep everything civil and factual. Now, here's the thing. The tenancy notice was the one thing that had to follow the rules. But everything else, everything I'd been doing out of kindness, out of love, out of sheer habit, that I could stop immediately. And it was all perfectly legal. I got myself a coffee and sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad. Made a list of every single expense I was covering for Tessa. When I added it all up, I nearly choked on my flat white. Between her car payments, phone bill, gym membership, her share of the rent, insurance, subscriptions, and the regular top-ups to her eftpos card, I was spending just over $2,800 a month on a woman who had just told me, in front of a garden full of people, that I was boring. $2,800 a month. To be called boring. Monday morning, I started making calls. The car lease. $430 a month, Mazda hatchback, lease in her name, but I'd been covering it for the past 11 months. Rang the leasing company, explained that I was a third party who'd been making voluntary payments, and that I would no longer be doing so effective immediately. The woman on the phone was very professional, said she'd noted in the account and that the primary lessee would be contacted directly regarding upcoming payment obligations. The phone rang Spark, went through the process of removing Tessa's line from my account. They said it would take effect within 48 hours. I confirmed and got an email receipt. Car insurance. She was listed as a named driver on my policy. Rang them, had her removed. 10 minutes. The bank card. This one was important. Tessa had a secondary card linked to my Westpac Everyday account. I'd given it to her about 8 months ago for emergencies. Within the first week, she'd used it to buy coffees, lunches, a pair of sunglasses, and a handbag she said was on sale but still cost $260. I rang the bank, canceled the secondary card immediately, and asked them to issue me a new primary card with a new number so there was no chance of the old details being stored anywhere. They said the secondary card would stop working within 24 hours. Gym membership. City Fitness, couples plan, $120 a fortnight. Rang them and downgraded to an individual membership. They said Tessa's access would be deactivated by end of business that day. Netflix, Spotify, the grocery delivery app. All under my account, all tied to my payment card. Changed every password, removed all her devices, logged out all sessions. If she wanted to watch something, she could sign up for her own account. With her own money. Then I sat down and wrote the formal notice. 21 days to vacate. I kept it clean and factual. Our relationship had ended. I would no longer be contributing to any of her personal expenses. She was welcome to collect her belongings during the notice period at a time we both agreed upon. I referenced the relevant sections of the Residential Tenancies Act that Alistair had pointed me to, so she'd know this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment letter. This was considered, planned, and legal. I left it on the kitchen bench next to the kettle, where she'd see it first thing. Update 2. Sunday evening. The reality check. Tessa came home around 6 on Sunday evening. She'd been at Rachel's place since the barbecue, sleeping off what I assumed was a pretty solid hangover. She walked through the door still in Saturday's clothes, makeup smudged, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. I was sitting on the couch reading a book, the same spot I always sat in on Sunday evenings. She went straight to the kitchen, probably to make tea, and spotted the letter next to the kettle. Picked it up. Read it slowly. I watched from the couch as her face cycled through about 5 different emotions. Confusion came first. Then irritation. Then something like disbelief. Then anger. And finally, just for a second, a flash of genuine panic before the anger came back. Stuart. What the hell is this? It's a 21-day notice to vacate, I said, keeping my eyes on my book. There's also a note that I'm no longer covering any of your personal expenses. Effective immediately. You cannot be serious right now. Completely serious. Because of Saturday? Because of one throwaway comment at a barbecue? I closed the book and looked at her. You gave your phone number to a random bloke, Tessa. Right in front of me. In front of Craig, in front of Rachel, in front of everyone. And when I asked you about it, you didn't apologize. You didn't even look embarrassed. You told me that other men find you attractive and that I'm boring. That wasn't a throwaway comment. That was you telling me exactly how you see me and this relationship. I'd been drinking, Stuart. I didn't mean it like that. You'd had 3 wines, Tessa. You weren't stumbling or slurring. You knew exactly what you were saying. And honestly, I think you felt that way for a long time. Saturday was just the first time you said it where I could hear it. She switched tactics. The tears started. She said she left me, said she was sorry, said she'd been insecure, said it was a stupid attempt to make me jealous, said it would never happen again. I'd heard versions of this before. After the time I found messages on her phone from some bloke at her work at 1 in the morning, full of winking faces and inside jokes I wasn't part of. She said they were just friends. After the time she went out for drinks with Rachel on a Friday and didn't come home until Saturday afternoon with a dead phone and a story about falling asleep on Rachel's couch, except Rachel mentioned the following week that she'd gone home early that night. I let both of those go. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that trust was important and that I should give her the benefit of the doubt. Not this time. The notice stands, Tessa. 21 days. She grabbed the letter off the bench, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it at me. Then she stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the hallway wall. About an hour later, things got quiet. Then I heard the bedroom door open. Tessa walked out holding her phone with a confused expression. Stuart, my card's been declined. That's correct. You're no longer an authorized user on my account. The secondary card's been cancelled. What? Since when? Since this morning. How am I supposed to order dinner? How am I supposed to buy anything? The same way every other adult does, Tessa. With your own money. From your own account. She stared at me. I mean really stared, like she was trying to process something that didn't fit into the world as she understood it. Then she went back to the bedroom and I heard her ring Rachel. Update 3. Tuesday through Wednesday. Things start getting real. Monday, Tessa went to work at the boutique as if nothing had happened. I think she assumed I'd cool down over the course of the day, come home apologetic, reverse everything, and we'd go back to the arrangement that suited her. She was wrong. Tuesday morning, her phone died. Not the battery. The service. Spark had processed my request and her line was gone. I got the confirmation text while I was at my desk at work. About an hour later, I got home to find her standing in the kitchen in her dressing gown, holding the phone up like it owed her money. My phone's not working. It says no service. That's because you've been removed from my plan, Tessa. You'll need to set up your own account. With what, Stuart? My pay doesn't come through until the 15th and today's the 4th. That's a budgeting issue, Tessa. Not a me issue. She ended up borrowing Rachel's old iPhone and getting a prepaid SIM from the warehouse. $20 top-up, limited data, no international calling. She told Rachel it was humiliating to be on a prepaid at 28. Rachel, to her credit, apparently told her that most people manage just fine on prepaid plans and that maybe she needed to adjust her expectations. Wednesday was when the car payment was due. $430. The leasing company rang Tessa directly because there was no payment pending and no scheduled transfer from my account. She came home that evening looking pale. They said I need to make the full payment by Friday or they'll begin repossession proceedings. Stuart, I don't have $430. Then you need to find it, Tessa. You've been paying it for 11 months. You can't just stop with no warning. I gave you warning. It's in the letter on the bench. The one you screwed up and threw at me. That doesn't count as warning for car payments. Tessa, it's your lease. Your name on the paperwork. I was doing you a favor. The favor is over. Where am I supposed to get that money by Friday? I don't know. Maybe ask one of your admirers. You're irresistible, remember? She went quiet. Really quiet. Then she walked out. Found out later she rang her older sister Vicky over in Hamilton and begged for a loan. Vicky apparently transferred the money but made it crystal clear it was a one-off, that she had her own mortgage and kids to worry about, and that Tessa needed to start sorting her own life out. I could only imagine how that conversation went. Thursday morning, the gym situation hit. Tessa had been going to City Fitness 5 days a week. Less for the exercise, if I'm honest, and more for the social scene. The morning classes, the smoothie bar, the chance to be seen in expensive activewear that, yes, I'd largely paid for. She tried to scan on Thursday morning and the system rejected her card. She rang me from outside the gym, voice tight with anger. They say my membership's been cancelled. That's right. I've moved to an individual plan. Stuart, you're taking away everything. No, Tessa. I'm taking back what was mine. There's a difference. Every single thing that's disappeared from your life this week is something I was paying for. None of it was yours. It was all mine. You just got used to using it. She hung up without saying goodbye. Update 4. The Pressure Campaign. By the end of week 1, Tessa was splitting her time between the apartment, where she was increasingly unwelcome, and Rachel's spare room in Grey Lynn. She hadn't looked at a single flat listing. Hadn't contacted a single letting agent. She was spending her energy on trying to get me to reverse everything rather than actually building a life of her own. Thursday evening, Rachel rang me. I'd always liked Rachel. She was sensible, worked hard as a nurse at Auckland City Hospital, and had always been straight with me. But this call was on Tessa's behalf, and I could hear it in her voice. Stuart, look, I know things are rough between you two. But Tessa's really struggling. She can barely afford to eat. She's not sleeping. She had a panic attack at work yesterday. Rachel, I hear you, and I'm sorry she's going through a hard time. But she stood in front of a dozen people and told me she gives her number to other men because I'm boring. She said I wasn't enough. I'm just taking her at her word. She made one stupid comment. She'd been drinking. She'd had 3 glasses of wine, Rachel. That's not blackout drunk. That's honest. And it wasn't the first time she's disrespected me. It was just the first time she did it publicly. So you're going to financially ruin her over it? I'm not ruining anyone, Rachel. I'm just not funding her anymore. If her whole life falls apart the moment one person stops paying for everything, That tells you something about how she'd set up her life. Not about me. Rachel paused for a long time. She really is sorry, Stuart. She's sorry that there are consequences, Rachel. That's not the same as being sorry for what she did. When she told me I was boring at that barbecue, she wasn't sorry. She was smug. She was proud of herself. The sorry only started when the credit card stopped working. Rachel didn't have a response to that. We said goodnight. Friday night, Tessa's mother Diane rang from Tauranga. Diane was a retired schoolteacher, firm voice, proper manners, the kind of woman who believed that every problem could be solved with a good conversation over a cup of tea. Stuart, it's Diane. I've just spent 2 hours on the phone with Tessa, and I'm worried about her. She's in a terrible state. I think you two need to sit down together and talk this through properly. Diane, I have a lot of respect for you. I always have. But your daughter told me, in front of all our friends, that other men find her attractive and that I'm too boring to hold her attention. She gave a stranger her phone number while I was standing 20 meters away. I don't want to be with someone who feels that way about me, and I definitely don't want to keep paying for the privilege. She made a mistake, Stuart. Young people make mistakes. She's 28, Diane. She's not a teenager. And some mistakes come with consequences. You're punishing her. No. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I could forgive a mistake, Diane, I really could. But this wasn't a mistake. It was a mindset. She genuinely believed she was entitled to my money and other men's attention at the same time. That's not something you fix with a conversation over tea. Diane told me I'd regret this and hung up. I made myself a cup of tea anyway, sat on the couch, and watched the rugby. The Chiefs were playing the Blues. I had the volume up as loud as I wanted because nobody was going to tell me it was boring. Second week. Tessa tried showing up at my office. She came to the building on Queen Street during my lunch break on Tuesday, dressed up, full makeup, hair done, wearing a dress I recognized as expensive. She told the receptionist she was my girlfriend and needed to see me urgently. The receptionist rang my desk. I went downstairs. Tessa was sitting in the lobby, legs crossed, posture perfect. She'd prepared for this like it was a job interview. This was the remind him what he's losing play. Classic. Stuart, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I sat down across from her. Go ahead. I'm so sorry about the barbecue. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I'll pay my own way. I'll get a full-time job. Please, just give me another chance. Tessa, it's not about chances. You told me what you think of me. I believe you. That's not what I think. I was trying to make you jealous. I wanted a reaction. Well, you got one. Not this reaction. I wanted you to fight for me. To show me you cared. I leaned forward slightly. Listen to what you just said. You wanted me to fight for you. You wanted me to prove myself. You engineered a situation where you disrespected me in public so that I would chase you harder. That's not love, Tessa. That's a game. And I don't play games with people who are spending my money while they test my loyalty. 2.5 years, Stuart. Does that mean nothing? It meant everything to me. Right up until you told me I was boring. I stood up, said goodbye, and went back to work. She was gone when I left the building at 5. Update 5. Day 14. Things escalate. The 21-day notice was ticking. Tessa still hadn't viewed a single flat. She was cycling between Rachel's spare room, Vicky's place when she could get to Hamilton on weekends, and occasionally the apartment when I was at work, using her key which still worked because the notice period was still active. On day 14, I came home from the office and found a locksmith standing outside my apartment door with Tessa next to him, arms folded. She says she's a tenant and she's been locked out, the locksmith said, looking uncomfortable. She's an occupant who's been served 21 days' notice to vacate. We're on day 14. She has her key and it works. I haven't changed any locks. She's not locked out. The locksmith looked at Tessa. Tessa looked at the floor. Is that true? The locksmith asked her. You've got a working key? Tessa didn't answer, which was answer enough. Mate, I'm not getting involved in this, the locksmith said to both of us. He packed up his tools and left. I looked at Tessa. What was the play there, Tessa? Get the locksmith to change the locks while I'm at work so you can lock me out of my own apartment? She didn't deny it. I just want my stuff, Stuart. You've always been welcome to collect your stuff. Text me a time, I'll be here. That's how this has always worked. I shouldn't need your permission to get my own things. You're right. And in 7 days, you won't need it because you'll have your own place with your own things in it. Unless you haven't been looking, which is starting to seem like the case. I can't afford anywhere in Auckland on what I earn, Stuart. Then maybe look outside Ponsonby. There are flats in Henderson, in Manurwa, in Papakura. They're not glamorous but they're affordable. Welcome to what most people's lives actually look like, Tessa. She left without saying another word. That evening, she texted from her prepaid phone. Could she come Saturday morning with Rachel and a trailer to collect everything? I agreed. Told her I'd be there from 9. Saturday morning, Rachel pulled up in her hatchback towing a small trailer she'd borrowed from someone. Tessa arrived separately in her Mazda, the one with the lease payment she still couldn't really afford. They spent about 3.5 hours packing up everything that belonged to Tessa. Clothes. Shoes. An astonishing number of shoes. Bags. A suitcase full of makeup and skincare products, most of which I'd bought. Candles, cushions, a throw blanket, some books she'd never opened. A set of expensive pots and pans she'd asked me to buy but never once used because she didn't cook. I stayed in the kitchen the whole time. Made myself useful checking that nothing of mine was accidentally or deliberately going into the boxes. But otherwise, I kept out of their way. When they'd finished, the apartment looked twice as big. Which made sense. Tessa's things had been slowly taking over every surface for 14 months. She stood by the front door, one hand on the frame, looking back down the hallway like she was photographing it with her eyes. Stuart, she said quietly. I know I messed up. I know I took you for granted. But this doesn't have to be the end. We could try again. I'd be different. You told me I was boring, Tessa. So I stopped being boring. I stopped doing all the boring things. Paying your car lease. Covering your phone bill. Funding your gym. Buying your skincare. Topping up your eftpos card. Turns out, boring was costing me about $2,800 a month. She closed her eyes. Rachel put a hand on her shoulder and gently steered her towards the door. They loaded the last of the boxes and drove away. I changed the locks that evening. Rang Alistair, told him Tessa had voluntarily removed all her belongings and vacated the premises. He said that effectively constituted surrender of occupancy and I was within my rights to secure the property. I sent Tessa a text confirming the notice period was considered complete, thanked her for collecting her things promptly, and wished her well. She didn't reply. Final update. 6 weeks later. It's been about 6 weeks since that barbecue, and I want to give you the full picture of how things turned out. Tessa found a flat. A small one-bedroom place out in Henderson, above a fish and chip shop on the main road. Not Ponsonby. Not Newmarket. Not Grey Lynn. Henderson. Her parents had to co-sign the lease because her credit record on its own wasn't strong enough to satisfy the letting agent. When you've never paid a bill in your own name, the system doesn't have much faith in you. It turns out being irresistible isn't listed as a form of income on a rental application. She moved from part-time to nearly full-time at the boutique. Picked up a second job doing weekend shifts at a cafe in NewZealand. Rachel told me, and Rachel and I had actually stayed on decent terms, that Tessa had been genuinely shocked by how much real life costs when you're paying for all of it yourself. Rent, power, internet, groceries, petrol, car payments, insurance, phone. Every single dollar accounted for, every week a juggling act. Rachel said Tessa sat down one Sunday night with a calculator and worked out that after all her fixed costs, she'd have roughly $55 a week left over. $55. For a woman who used to drop $300 on a dress without blinking. Because it was my money she was spending. The gym was the first thing to go. Then Netflix. Then the regular brunch with friends on Sunday mornings. Then the online shopping. Then the Uber Eats. One by one, every little luxury I'd been silently funding evaporated from her life like steam off a cup of tea. And here's the bit that really ties the whole thing together. The bloke from the barbecue. Ethan, or whatever his name was. He never rang her. Not once. Not a call, not a text, nothing. Craig told me about 3 weeks later that he'd found out through his cousin who knew the bloke's crowd that this Ethan character was visiting from Sydney, over in Auckland for a mate's stag do. He'd been going around collecting phone numbers from women at every event that weekend as part of some bet or drinking game with his mates. He had a girlfriend back in Sydney. He probably deleted every number the moment he got on the plane home. So let me lay that out for you. Tessa blew up her relationship. Lost her financial support. Lost her apartment. Lost her gym membership. Lost her phone plan. Nearly lost her car. Ended up in a one-bedroom flat above a fish and chip shop in Henderson, working 6 days a week just to keep her head above water. And all of it to impress a bloke who was playing a drinking game and had a girlfriend waiting for him back in Australia. She waited by her phone for days. Days. For a message that was never, ever coming. While I was at home in Ponsonby, sleeping properly for the first time in months, cooking my own dinners, watching whatever I wanted on the telly, going to the gym without checking if she was flirting with someone on the stretching mats, and not once, not a single time, wondering if someone else was getting my girlfriend's phone number behind my back. Tessa tried reaching out a few more times through mutual friends over the following weeks. Always the same message. She'd changed. She'd learned. She wanted another chance. She'd treat me differently. My answer was always the same. She told me exactly who she was at that barbecue. I believed her. I'm not going back to find out if she was telling the truth again. Craig rang me about 5 weeks after the split. Said he'd seen Tessa at the Countdown in Henderson. Said she was going through the aisles with a calculator app on her phone, adding up items as she put them in the trolley. Budget bread. Store-brand butter. The cheap instant coffee instead of the all-pressed beans she used to insist on. Craig said she looked tired. Not broken, he said, but like someone carrying a weight they'd never felt before. And look, I'm not going to pretend I felt nothing when he told me that. I'm not heartless. We had 2.5 years together, and not all of it was bad. There were good times. Kind moments. Sunday mornings in bed with coffee and the papers. Walks along Takapuna Beach at sunset. The first few months when everything was new and she still said thank you when I paid for dinner. Those memories are real. But so is what she said at that barbecue. Both things can be true. I saw her once more, about a month later. I was running along Tamaki Drive on a Saturday morning, something I'd started doing again since she'd moved out, and I passed the cafe in Mission Bay where we used to have brunch every weekend. Eggs Benedict and flat whites, $48 for 2, and I always paid. I glanced through the window as I jogged past. She wasn't there, of course. Couldn't afford it anymore. I kept running. The harbor was beautiful that morning. I hadn't noticed how beautiful Auckland could be when you weren't spending all your energy managing someone else's lifestyle. Rachel told me recently that Tessa's been seeing a counselor. Working through things. Something about patterns, about entitlement, about understanding that love isn't a service you receive but a partnership you build. I hope that's true. I genuinely hope she comes out the other side of this a better person. But she won't be coming out of it back into my apartment. Not now, not ever. So here's where I want to leave this, and this is the part one hope sticks with anyone listening who needs to hear it. When someone tells you you're boring, when they tell you to step up, to try harder, to compete for their attention, to earn their interest, what they're really telling you is that everything you're already giving isn't enough. And sometimes what you're already giving is everything. Every bill paid. Every problem smoothed over. Every shortfall quietly covered. Every comfort provided without being asked. You're doing all of that, and they look at the totality of your effort and say, yeah, but you're boring. The answer isn't to try harder. The answer is to recognize that some people will never appreciate what you do because they've never had to do it themselves. Tessa didn't understand what I was contributing to her life because she'd never had to contribute it herself. She thought being attractive was a contribution. She thought her presence in the apartment was payment enough. She thought that because other men noticed her, I should feel grateful and work harder to keep her entertained. That's not how a partnership works. A partnership is two people carrying the weight together, not one person doing all the heavy lifting while the other critiques their form. If you're out there right now paying someone's bills, covering their rent, making their car payments, topping up their eftpos card, and they're still telling you that you're not enough, hear me clearly. You will never be enough for that person. Because the problem isn't what you're giving. The problem is that they've forgotten what it's like to give anything at all. Tessa called me boring. And maybe she was right. Paying someone's car lease every month is boring. Covering someone's phone bill is boring. Making sure someone else's life runs smoothly while they hand out their number to strangers at barbecues is incredibly boring work. So I stopped doing the boring things. And suddenly, life got very interesting. Tessa's learning to be irresistible on her own budget now. $55 a week and a flat above a fish and chip shop in Henderson. Turns out, irresistible has a very different price tag when you're the one paying for it. Sometimes the most exciting thing a person can do is simply stop. Stop carrying someone who doesn't even notice you're tired. Stop funding someone who doesn't even know what things cost. Stop proving yourself to someone who's already decided you're not enough. Just stop. Walk away. Let them figure out what boring actually looked like when it was keeping their entire life afloat. That's what I did. And I haven't been bored since.